Welcome to the Full Moon Film Buff, episode 90. We're going to talk about Howling 5, The Rebirth from 1989. I watched this on Amazon Prime. I had not seen this before. As always, we begin with the prominent crew and cast. The film was directed by Neil Sundstrom, written by Clive Turner and Freddie Rowe, with effects makeup by Mike Elizalde. We discussed Clive Turner and Freddie Rowe when we first discussed Howling 4. I'm not 100% sure Mike Elizalde is responsible for the werewolf effects makeup, but he's the best candidate I can find. This is one of his earliest credits. In 1994, Elizalde and his wife Mary established Spectral Motion Incorporated. Elizalde was nominated for an Academy Award for Hellboy 2, The Golden Army. Cast includes Phil Davis as the Count, billed as Philip Davis, Victoria Caitlin as Dr. Catherine Peake, Elizabeth Shea as Mary Lou Summers, Ben Cole as David, William Shockley as Richard, Mark Silverstone as Jonathan, Stephanie Faulkner as Gail, Mary Stavin as Anna, Clive Turner as Ray, and Nigel Triffitt as the Professor. Phil Davis has an extensive filmography on IMDb, though detailed information about him is scarce. Elizabeth Shea's entire acting career appears to be 3 roles, all of them in the Howling franchise. William Shockley's breakthrough came in Paul Verhoeven's 1986 film RoboCop. He garnered wider recognition for his 6-year stint as Hank Lawson, the saloon keeper, in Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. Shockley expanded his career into writing and producing films. Mark Silverstone began his career as a stuntman before transitioning to the safer and more profitable field of modeling. This naturally led him into acting. Mary Stavin gained international attention when she was crowned Miss World in 1977. She has appeared in Adam Ant music videos and holds the unusual distinction of playing 2 different roles in 2 different James Bond films. Let's start with the recommendation. I enjoyed the film. It's good, but not great. On the upside, it is atmospheric, great set, and the mystery is decent. I feel like I'm pretty good at solving these kinds of mysteries, and they had me fooled pretty deep into the film. I do recommend you see it. If you have any interest in watching this movie, then skip my synopsis. I include timestamps for just this reason. I promise I won't spoil the movie in any other part of this episode. That said, there are things I didn't love. The acting felt a little wooden, which might have more to do with the language issues that existed between the cast and crew. A related problem is I didn't truly care about any characters. They never felt like real people. They all felt like cardboard characters who might as well have been walking around with stickers displaying their pertinent attributes. The cinematography also never really gave me a good sense of the geography of the castle. A little tidbit related to the movie, there was no city called Budapest in 1489. The cities of Buda and Pest were not merged until 1873. Buckle up for the synopsis. This is a long one. Also, this one's a mystery, and I will spoil the movie. You have been warned. The year is 1489. The location is a castle near Budapest, Hungary. Dead people sprawl across the hall. The master shouts that the evil is finished before killing his willing wife and committing suicide. As the master lies dying, he hears a baby cry in an adjacent room, and he realizes almost everyone is dead, and the mass suicide is in vain. Wolves howl in the snow. Fast forward 500 years. Musician Gail and photographer David awkwardly reconnect on the banks of the Danube River. Professional tennis player Jonathan hits on Mary Lou, a blonde bimbo and aspiring actress. Richard's wife whines that she was not invited to come with him. Anna, a Scandinavian actress, arrives with paparazzi in tow. Catherine, a standoffish doctor, clashes with laid-back Australian songwriter Ray. Finally, there is an unnamed professor. These 9 people were selected from among many applicants to reopen the castle. Their host is Count Istvan Bazeli. On the bus drive, the Count says that the castle has sat abandoned for 500 years. The group arrives at the castle and meets the help, who speak no English. Gail observes the Count whisper to the bus driver, who drives away. Lunch will soon be ready, and the Count encourages everyone to be cautious if they go exploring. The professor immediately explores the dungeons. While changing clothes, Gail sees a shadow. Thinking that there is a peeping Tom, she quickly finishes and goes to look, but she can find no one. The door closes behind the professor and locks. He hears ferocious growling and tries to escape, but the werewolf waits for him. And then there were 8. We never did learn his name. Outside, snow falls. During lunch, the Count continues relating the story of the castle. He does not know whether the mass killings were suicides or murders. The Count says the professor left the castle and may be lost outside in the storm. The storm is strengthening into a blizzard, so searching is useless. No one can leave, so they all go to find bedrooms. Jonathan convinces Mary Lou to accompany him down to the baths. Gail tells Ray that the blizzard was forecast well in advance, and the bus stranded them. She believes the professor never left the castle, pointing out that his coat is still on the rack down below. She asks Ray to check the room for another entrance while she gets the professor's coat as proof. Jonathan and Mary Lou notice that they share the same triangular birthmark on their arms. Ray finds a loose brick that moves a heavy wall panel, exposing a secret passage. Ray takes a candle and goes exploring, instead of waiting for Gail. Jonathan puts a move on Mary Lou, which causes her to flee. Ray hears a grinding sound and finds that the secret door has closed behind him. Gail returns, and now she can't find Ray. Ray watches through a crack in the wall panel and sees an animal pounce on Gail. Ray runs from the door to find another way back into the main castle. He falls down some stairs and is knocked out. When he wakes up, he discovers the professor's dead body and a door leading outside. Other tunnels lead to other parts unknown in the castle, but Ray decides to take his chances outside. He gets to the main castle entrance, but it's blocked by snow. He returns to the other door, but the werewolf bursts from the snow and kills him. And then there are 7. We finally get to see the beast. The werewolf moves the professor's body. The Count has noticed that Ray and Gail have disappeared. Jonathan and David arrive and help the Count find the secret entrance. The 3 retrace Ray's steps. The door leading outside is locked from the inside now, so they believe Ray and Gail must have entered the tunnels. David finds Ray's bloody watch. They get the other 4 to help search. Back in the Great Hall, the Count informs them that the tunnels were designed as a maze to confuse invading armies during wartime. The Count suggests that they divide into groups and search the tunnels. The group decides to mark the walls with chalk so that they don't get lost. Richard, Catherine, and the butler go to the hidden passage. Anna and the Count take one tunnel. David and the maid take another. And Jonathan and Mary Lou take the third. Mary Lou suspects someone is following them. She thinks someone is rubbing off the chalk marks. And sure enough, Jonathan does find a rubbed off chalk mark. He panics and runs. The others hear the distant echoes. The Count goes to investigate, leaving Anna his heretofore unseen pistol. The werewolf catches Jonathan just when he thought he got away. And then there were 6. Anna hears the growling and calls for the Count. She shoots at a large shadow. David shows up and calms her down. Richard hears the gunshot and returns. David shoots again, this time narrowly missing the Count. They find Mary Lou. She reports that a large animal chased Jonathan, leaving her alone. Meanwhile, the butler approaches Richard with a knife bleeding from the head. Someone attacked him with a rock. Back in the main hall, the survivors suspect that a wild animal, possibly a wolf, has found its way into the tunnels. They don't agree on anything else. David proposes returning to the tunnels to find Gail, Ray, and Jonathan. Mary Lou feels sick and goes to lie down, with Anna and Richard accompanying her. The Count rests an injured ankle. I don't remember how he injured it. David and Catherine return to the tunnels. Catherine finds evidence that the Count knows more than he's letting on. Richard and Anna uncover even more coincidences. Everyone in the group is an orphan. Anna believes the Count is being honest with them, but Richard is convinced that this situation is no accident. Anna decides to take a bath. David and Catherine find Jonathan's body. He was shot, but after he was already dead from having his throat ripped out. They wonder if more than one animal is in the tunnels and return to the group. Meanwhile, Richard notices that he and Anna share the triangular birthmark we saw earlier with Jonathan and Mary Lou. Just then, the werewolf obliterates the door and savages him. And then there were 5. David and Catherine are now lost in the tunnels. They find the chalk marks, which lead them back. Catherine realizes the animal story makes no sense, since only Jonathan's throat is injured. A normal animal would have partially eaten him. David finds Gail, and she's still alive. He also finds the professor's dead body. David hears Gail say werewolf before she succumbs to her wounds. And then there were 4. The pair suspects that the Count is behind these killings. He invited them and hosted them and could have set them up for this. Catherine hears noises behind some curtains and charges with a pike, only to discover Richard's body behind the curtain, his throat already torn out. The Count arrives, recognizing the werewolf bite and saying that the prophecy is fulfilled. David and Catherine confront him. He admits the guests were not selected by chance. They all have the triangular birthmark on their arms, identifying them as descendants of the family who occupied this castle back in 1489. The baby was smuggled out of the castle, grew up, and passed on its family curse. One descendant is a werewolf. The others arrive, except for Mary Lou, who is still asleep. David accuses the Count of being the murderer. He denies it and tells them he is dedicated to finding the werewolf and killing it. It can only be killed by someone who has the birthmark. He knew that if the castle was opened, the descendants would return home. The Count accuses David of being the werewolf. Outraged, David points the gun at the Count. Nobody is believing the Count at this point. They lock the Count with the maid and butler in the dungeons while they figure out what their next move should be. David, Catherine, and Anna discuss what to do in the Great Hall. David and Catherine want to just kill the Count to protect themselves. Anna would rather report him to the police and is outraged at the thought of vigilante justice. Anna does convince them to wait until Mary Lou can make her voice heard. Catherine goes to find her. David goes up to the roof to see if anything is going on outside. Anna waits until they're both gone. Then she takes the gun, the lantern, and the keys and returns to the dungeons. Outside, the snow is letting up, although it does remain cloudy. Anna releases the prisoners, informing them of the others' plans. The Count congratulates her on a good decision and retakes his gun. He still intends to kill David, though. When Anna protests, they lock her in the cell instead. They do leave her the key, but advise her to wait before using it, because she will probably be killed if she leaves the cell before the Count returns. Mary Lou isn't in the bedroom, and Catherine fears that she has been killed. Anna tries to open her cell door anyway, ignoring the advice of the Count. A noise startles her, and she drops the key. The werewolf seizes her throat through the bars, and then there were three. Catherine gets down to the dungeons and finds Anna's body and meets the same fate, and then there were two. The butler sneaks up behind David with an axe. Mary Lou shouts, David ducks, and the butler beheads the maid instead. Mary Lou kills the butler with a crossbow, saving David. She is on the edge of panic. David picks up the axe and advises her to hide in the bedrooms and wait, because he has to kill the Count before the Count kills them both. Instead of hiding, Mary Lou follows David to the roof and calls out after him, which lets the Count sneak up behind her. He tells her that David is the werewolf and points to the thinning clouds. Soon the full moon will appear, and the werewolf will transform, unable to help himself. Mary Lou sees David approaching with the axe and pulls the Count away. The Count pulls the gun, but both men lose their weapons quickly in the struggle. Mary Lou picks up the gun and tells them to stop fighting or she'll shoot. The men stop and face her instead. David telling her to put the gun down, the Count telling her to shoot David instead. Finally, flustered and in a panic, she shoots the gun. The Count falls to the floor, and David comforts her, saying that there are no such thing as werewolves. At that moment, the full moon finally comes out from behind the clouds, and Mary Lou faces it and smiles. Her werewolf howl is heard as the movie ends, and now there is just one. According to an interview with Cinefantastique, the script was written to de-emphasize effect sequences in favor of the mystery and atmosphere, so there is no transformation scene. We don't get more than glances at the werewolf. It looks good when we do see it, but we don't see it very much. As far as werewolf lore, any new werewolf lore is introduced in the opening. Being a werewolf is a genetic curse passed along via bloodlines. Not every descendant suffers the curse, since there's only one werewolf in this generation, and it seems that if they can kill it, they can end the curse. She seems to have full control over her transformation, since she never seems worried she might wolf out and get caught. She is certainly a cold-blooded killer, rather than the mindless werewolf we've seen in many other movies to this point. As I said before, we know this film was written to maximize the mystery aspects, and this led to a structure reminiscent of the werewolf film The Beast Must Die from 1974. A group of eccentric individuals is assembled by a host to identify, expose, and kill a dangerous werewolf. It's done much better here. I think it's clearly modeled on the classic Agatha Christie novel And Then There Were None, first published in 1939. This book is widely regarded as one of Agatha Christie's masterpieces, largely due to the intricate and ingenious structure that this film borrows. The novel's framework revolves around a central concept. 10 strangers are lured to an isolated island, where they are systematically killed off one by one. This premise sets up both the plot and the underlying tension driving the narrative. So let's break that structure down into several key components and see how well this movie adapts them. First, we have the setup. The opening characters introduce the 10 characters as they travel to Soldier Island. Christie uses the section to provide character background and hint at potential secrets or motivations. This establishment of the cast is crucial, laying the groundwork for the suspense to come. Unfortunately, I don't think the film does as good a job introducing its characters on their trip to the remote castle for a couple of reasons. The primary one is that the characters all share the same secret about their ancestry, and they aren't even all aware of the secret themselves, which means it would take too much time to differentiate the characters' backstories. The film doesn't try much past a few basic cursory job titles and basic attributes. Next, the novel is built around the 10 Little Soldiers nursery rhyme, which outlines how each soldier dies. This rhyme serves as a roadmap for the killings in the novel, with each death mimicking or inspired by a line from the poem. This creates a sense of inevitability and dread as the characters realize that connection. The film, however, completely skips this structural element. All the movie characters die the same way, jugulation. Additionally, the juxtaposition and apparent childish innocence of a nursery rhyme with the violent malevolence of murder creates a potent sense of cognitive dissonance and psychological unease. The familiar, comforting rhythms and melodies associated with childhood are twisted into something sinister, amplifying the shock and disturbance of the violent acts. This was a real missed opportunity in the movie. Third, as characters are killed off one by one, the structure of the novel naturally tightens. With fewer suspects remaining, tension increases and the pace of the story accelerates. This dwindling cast also allows Christie to delve deeper into the remaining characters' psyches and interactions. This is one element that works just as well in the film as it does in the novel, for the exact same reasons. Fourth, the novel's island setting is a closed environment from which there is no escape. This isolation amplifies the suspense and forces the characters to confront the reality that the killer is among them. The Hungarian castle in the blizzard is a great adaptation of this element. The group can't get away, and rescue is not coming. One way or another, they have to resolve the situation themselves. Now, one element that the film just can't mimic is the final twist ending. The novel's conclusion presents a structural coup de grace. After all characters are presumed dead, Christie provides an epilogue explaining the true sequence of events. This final revelation recontextualizes everything that came before, challenging readers to reconsider their assumptions. The film does present viewers with a twist as to who is the werewolf, but the revelation doesn't force you to reconsider any assumptions you made along the way. Finally, the structure of the novel supports its thematic exploration of justice, guilt, and moral responsibility. As each character's past is revealed, the reader is forced to grapple with questions of crime and punishment. There is no consideration of these themes in the film. All the novel's characters are guilty of something. Most of the film's characters are innocent and ignorant of why they were even brought to the castle in the first place. In conclusion, the structure of And Then There Were None is a masterclass in mystery writing. Christie uses the isolated setting, dwindling cast, and nursery rhyme framework to create a tightly wound narrative that builds suspense relentlessly. The limited perspective and careful misdirection keep readers engaged until the final twist, which provides a satisfying resolution while reinforcing the novel's themes. This carefully crafted structure has made the novel endure as a classic of the mystery genre. Howling 5: The Rebirth certainly attempts to replicate that process in film, and it does have some success, but the filmmakers didn't quite succeed at blending the structural adaptation with the werewolf killer to end up with a cinematic classic. Still, it is a very fun watch if you're into werewolves and whodunits. So, if you like lycanthropes, like, share, and subscribe. Contribute your thoughts and additional observations in the comments below. Let me know what I missed or what you may have noticed. Next, I plan on discussing Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School from 1988. Keep your eye on the moon, a silver bullet in the chamber, and we'll see you back next episode.